Okay. Well, for this week, I was creating a vehicle management. So this is the site that I've been working on. It's called PHP Motors. Um, Now I'm going to be adding links to the vehicle management system. We'll link it to my account. But what I've been working on lately, this is just the main page. But what I've been working on is that I added. So we talked about the model view controller, um, MVC, which is the controller handles everything that happens on the page. It basically receives information from the view, and then it passes it to the filters that information, then passes it to the model. The control then works as the engine that does the decision making. So this is the main controller for the site. Then I have a controller that is responsible for handling requests for handling all the requests that are then coming from the users that want to log in. Now, so this is that controller. Now I have another controller that I created. It's called the vehicles controller. It's going to be responsible for the management of the vehicles. So I'm going to just have that run. I haven't linked that yet to the main view. So this is the portal for the vehicle management portal. So before we go any further, I'm just going to see if it passes my front-end list. Now, my front-end list is that my CSS should pass, my HTML should pass, it should be responsible, it should pass the web validation. The CSS should be of my own creation, everything should be operational. So that's what I'm just going to run at the moment. So I'll first start with my HTML. This is going to run through and see if there's any problem. So it says here, document checking complete, no errors or warnings to show. So which means the HTML it's all good. Now I'm going to go ahead and check for the CSS cascading style sheets. Congratulations, no error. That's perfect. Now let's try let's do the way this let's try the wave taste. So we don't have any errors, we don't have any contrast errors, no alerts, features and all these things. But these basically are not important at the moment because it's already operating the way I'm moving. I'm mostly concerned about the errors and contrast errors. So I don't have any of that at the moment. So this is perfect. So I can say that my vehicle management portal is working amazing. So now this is now this has been delivered by the controller. And where is it coming from? It's coming from, if you look into my view, I have a PHP that handles the vehicle management. So when I open my controller, by default here, it always opens up the vehicle management. So I used a case switch statement. So by default, it's always going to log that page if there's an error or anything. So that's why it started from there. So now, depending on where I click, if you look at sorry, where's my controller? If you look at my controller, it then says here, when it gets an action, the action that I'm going to filter, it's going to be filtered. It's going then to decide that if this action is either a classification, it's either a register vehicle, or it's going to be an add vehicle or add classification, it's going to deliver any of those views. So it's already starting to make decisions based on whatever I click. So when you then look at my the next one of the pages that would load if I was to make a decision is, for example, let's go to add classification. So if you look through here, I'm going to click add classification. If I click add classification, it leads me to this very mini small form. Now, this small form, if you come through it here and then you look at the value that is passed on the button, the value that is passed from the button is going to be passed to the action. Now, this value is classification. So what it's doing now is that when it gets that classification, it's going to come and say, hey, just give me a second, sorry. Okay, sorry. So it's going to get just give me a second. Yeah, okay, that's better. My options for choosing here was hidden at the top since I'm sharing the screen. So then if I come here, let me open this on the side. So then I have that open the side, then I want the index to open. There you go, that's better. Edge classification open on the side. Okay, cool. So now let's look at what is going to render the edge classification. So edge classification is this one. So when it goes to my form, it's going to look at the edge classification. It looks for that edge classification as we have up here. This edge classification is going to be what's going to be passed down to the controller. And when it gets here, it says, hey, I've been passed down this value in my action. So now what are you going to give me? Then it says, hey, I'm going to give you this view. Then it renders this. So if you look at the link up here, you see that the action that was passed here is add classification, as shown up here. Right. Now let's just check to see that this is passing the HTML. This is the view. Okay, the HTML is passing. Let's check to see that the CSS is passing as well. Okay, the CSS is doing well. Now let's check to see if the wave is passing. So the wave is passing. If there's one alert, let me just look at it. Field set missing legend. I'm not worried too much about that. I don't have any errors, so I'm just going to move on. Now, here's what's going to happen. What's supposed to happen is that if I add a classification, it's supposed then to communicate with the database. So let's add one. Let's add bus. We don't have a bus up there. We just add a bus. I'm going to open my admin. I'm going to check on classification. There you go. As you can see, bus has been added. So that means that, you know, it's working. So how is it doing that? Well, if you come into the controller now, it's saying, well, if within our action variable, if we receive classification, then execute this code. Now, if you come to this form of classification, how does it pass classification down? It passes it through the value at the bottom when you submit. That I had mistakenly added to. Pointed to. So once it passes this classification, it then executes this code. Now, what does this code do? We have okay. We have this code communicate. It basically, sorry. So we have a model up here, and within this model, I have a function that is responsible for classification, and within here I have the SQL code that is going to insert data into the database. This is one of the CRUD functions. In this time I'm creating, I'm inserting data into the database, and then the function name is register classification. So then when I then come through my controller, you see later on I use that function here. How do I get that? How do I have one parameter here that then when I call that function, I pass the classification name that I would have typed in. It's going to be passed into this function, and then it will execute and take that argument that I would have typed in, the classification name, it will inject into the database. And once that's done, then that's done. All right. I'll just have to move on now to so it's adding to the database. Now, if you also look here, if I let me just open that in the browser again. Open in browser. Now you see that the bus has been loaded as on part of the nav. Now let's move on and do the add vehicle. If you click add vehicle, it takes you to this form here that you have to fill up. Now, let's say I want to select bus. Then I'll say, what make is it? I'll say Marco Polo. Marco Polo. And then model, I'll say 2017. Then I'll say description, I'll say yellow bus. Then path, I'll say images, pictures, car, page, JPEG. And there I'll just put on that. This is just to make sure that it's working proper. Then I'll put 500. I'll put 5 here on the invoice in inventory stock. And then the color I'm going to put, let's put yellow. Now, if I register, okay, please, okay, I think I had left, if I go to add classification, no, add vehicle, sorry. Add vehicle, on my description, I'm supposed to remove the type of email. There you go, so that I don't have an error there. Okay, let's start afresh. Let me go back, add vehicle. Before I even go further, let me first check to see if my it's going to pass. Then okay, so there's no errors. Let me check my CSS to see if it's passing. No errors. That's perfect. So now let's do this way. No errors. Okay, so that's cool. It's cool stuff. That's cool stuff. Now let's add the bus. We would say it was Marco Polo. Marco Polo. Marco Polo. Let me make a mistake. The model, let's say it's a 2018 model. The description, let's say yellow bus with a double diff and a double decker. So it's one of our new buses, double decker, like so. And then I'll give it the path. Then instead of say pictures, I'm just going to say yellow bus like that. JPG. That's the path that I'm giving it to where the then here I'm just going to say yellow slash mellow. Okay. So the part the thumbnail, then now we're going to say the price. Let's leave it at 200. Let's put it 500. Then now let's put it 5 to the best, and then we'll put the color yellow. So now let's add that. Then it says here the 2018 was added, so it's saying basically the model that we have chosen, the 2018 model was added. Now let's go to our database and check to see if it was added in part of our inventory. So we have Jeep, Ford, then you have, there's the Marco Polo there. Marco Polo, the model is the 2018. The yellow bus with a double diff and a double decker. So which means it's adding It's adding what we want it to do. So how is it doing that? Well, if you come to your controller, it's still communicating with the model. So it will say add vehicle. Then I'll come to the controller, and then it receives. If you look here in my add vehicle, the value here is very register vehicle. That is the last input that is hidden, register vehicle. Now, when it comes to the controller, it receives that. It's going to go to the case that is within the variable is register vehicle. So then here I end up calling the register vehicle. Now, where is it? Here I'm basically processing the information that I would have received via the form. Make sure that we filter it, then we store it in all these variables here, and then we check to see if they're not empty. If they're not empty, then we call a function that is within my my model vehicle model. Then I have the register vehicle. Then within here I have passed the parameters. If you look at these parameters, they match with these are the data that I'm passing through. So then if I go there, I have them as parameters, then I connect to the database, then I have the SQL statements for inserting that data, prepare my SQL. Then after that, I have I bind my values, and then execute. So this is the basic code that creates the data that I want and puts it into the database. So this function I later then call it in my controller here. I would have filtered that data that is coming from the form, check to see if it's not empty. Now when it's not empty, I create a new variable, call the function, pass all this data that I would have filtered here to this function, and that function does its job. Let me remove this echo. Now it comes here, then it says check and report the result. Then it checks to see, if if it will check to see if, because when you make changes to the database, it does report back to you on what has been changed. So now it then says if the new vehicle, was when you look through here this function, it then returns the roles that has been changed. It counts the rows and says, okay, how many rows has been changed? We close the case, then we return the rows that has changed. Now, when it returns the rows that have changed, we're then saying if the number of rows that has been changed is equals to 1, it just checks to see if there's any change. If the change is 1, then we say, okay, that was added successfully. But then if there's 0 changes, it means that it didn't actually add the row. Then it's going to then say, hey, sorry, we were not able to add that. So that's how that works. That's how that basically works. And then it would have added whatever that needs to be added. So our front end is working well. The vehicle controller is structured and it delivers as per request. We have the MVC architecture. That's what we just implemented. And then what else do we need to check here? Functions in the model successfully add and said, okay, these are working. Okay, these are all working. I'm happy with all of these. Okay, so I'm happy with how it's handling that. So that's it.